For about a year now, fans of Pokemon Horizons have been speculating that Lucius Entei, one of the 6 hero Pokemon, might actually be a Paradox Entei, a Gouging Fire, rather than a regular Entei. But unfortunately, this theory seemingly took a fatal blow when a few episodes ago, a flashback from 100 years ago revealed that Lucius Entei is a regular Entei, not a Paradox Entei. So it seemed the theory was dead. But then that fatal blow somehow took a fatal blow itself too, because in the most recent episode, our heroes found an Entei that they thought was Lucius Entei, but it ended up just being a random wild Entei. And now a Paradox Entei has been spotted in Area 0, so our heroes are heading there, because now they think the Paradox Entei is a Lucius Entei. So obviously fans have been left really confused by all of this, you know? How could Lucius Entei possibly be a Paradox Entei, a Gouging Fire now, if the flashback from 100 years ago showed that Lucius Entei was a regular Entei? Did the writers change their mind? Is it a big retcon? Or is there something else going on here? How was Lucius Entei a regular Entei in the flashback from 100 years ago, but now it's a Paradox Entei? Well, a lot of fans seem to have one big theory explaining it, but I have a different theory. A theory that I haven't really seen anyone else talking about. So grab your popcorn and let's break down what I think is going on behind the scenes with the twisty-turny story of Lucius Entei and its paradoxism. First of all, I've seen a lot of fans suggesting that the reason the flashback showed Lucius Entei as a regular Entei instead of a Gouging Fire is because that flashback was inaccurate and biased. You see, the flashback was told from the perspective of Rystal, Lucius's partner. It's not a totally objective and factually accurate depiction of events. Maybe Rystal didn't know that Lucius Entei was a Gouging Fire, a Paradox Entei. She probably just assumed it was a regular Entei because 100 years ago less was known about Paradox Pokemon and about legendary Pokemon. So yeah, these fans think that Lucius Entei was always a Paradox Entei, and that the flashback is just inaccurate because of Rystal's lack of knowledge. That seems to be the common consensus in the community to explain it. Most people seem to think that Entei was always a Paradox Entei, you know? But I've got to be honest, I think I really disagree with this theory. I think what I'm about to say is more accurate personally, so let's get into it. Unlike most fans, I don't think that Lucius Entei was always a Gouging Fire. I think Lucius Entei was a regular Entei 100 years ago. I think the flashback was accurate. And then I think that Lucius's regular Entei is now a Paradox Entei because it changed into one, all due to some events that I'll describe really soon. And the main reason I think this is what's right in front of us. In the recent episode when our heroes encountered a regular Entei, the Entei that they thought was Lucius's Entei, Liko's Terapagos itself believed that this Entei could be Lucius's Entei from 100 years ago. Terapagos personally knew Entei 100 years ago, they were part of the same squad. So if Terapagos itself thought this random Entei could be Lucius's Entei, then to me that screams that Lucius's Entei was a regular Entei 100 years ago. Terapagos remembers it as a regular Entei, and that's why Terapagos believed it could be the same Entei. Because if Lucius's Entei was a Gouging Fire 100 years ago, then Terapagos obviously would have known that this regular Entei couldn't be Lucius's Entei. Terapagos would have shown discomfort or disagreement, you know? It wouldn't have went along with our heroes thinking that a regular Entei could be Lucius's Entei. So I really think that Lucius's Entei was a regular Entei back then. That's why Terapagos recognized it now, and that something happened 100 years ago to turn it into a Gouging Fire. And this is what I think happened. So, in the flashback 100 years ago, Lucius and Terapagos sacrificed themselves in order to stop the Raicourium's cataclysmic explosion from destroying the world. Terapagos engulfed all 6 of Lucius's hero Pokemon in light, and it's implied that their combined power is what ultimately saved the world. And here's the key detail. I've theorized for a long time now that when Terapagos did this, it essentially split its immense power and energy between those 6 hero Pokemon. I mean, think about it, this would explain why Terapagos regains its power when it reunites with each of the 6 hero Pokemon. And it would explain why the 6 hero Pokemon are so extraordinary in the present day. I think Terapagos split its power between all of them during the sacrifice. I'll give 2 examples real quick. Before Terapagos' sacrifice, Arboliver was regular sized, but then after the sacrifice, Arboliver became a huge skyscraper size. Another example is Lucius's shiny Rayquaza being normal before Terapagos' sacrifice, but then after the sacrifice, Rayquaza had really visible glowing terrestrial effects all over its body. These attributes only came about through Terapagos sacrificing itself to stop the Raicourium. I think Terapagos split its power and its terrestrial energy between the 6 heroes and gave them these power-ups. perhaps, you know? Terapagos' power could have fundamentally altered the Pokemon, elevating them beyond what we'd expect from their species. And that would explain why they're so different now compared to how they were 100 years ago before the sacrifice. So clearly, if this is the case, then some of Terapagos' power and energy was transferred to Lucius's regular Entei too. Now let's talk about Paradox Pokemon. It's very heavily implied in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that Terapagos is the source of Paradox Pokemon. It's implied that Terapagos' terrestrial energy is what gives Paradox Pokemon their appearance and power. This information comes straight from the games. It's very widely accepted in the community too. Paradox Pokemon are seemingly a direct result of Terapagos and Terapagos' power. So, if Terapagos can create Paradox Pokemon like the games imply, then what if, during the sacrifice Terapagos made 100 years ago, when it split its power between the 6 hero Pokemon? What if Terapagos' power, the terrestrial energy that it transferred to Lucius's regular Entei, actually turned Entei into a Paradox Pokemon? Into a Gouging Fire? I really think I'm onto something here, dude. The power that Terapagos transferred into Entei could have turned it into a Gouging Fire. This theory ties together so many threads in Pokemon Horizons. It confirms Terapagos is what creates Paradox Pokemon, it proves that Terapagos did split its power between the 6 heroes, explaining why they're all so special and extraordinary, and of course it would explain how Lucius's Entei went from being a regular Entei to being a Paradox Entei, a Gouging Fire. And this means the flashback that we saw isn't incorrect. Lucius's Entei was a regular Entei back then, but then during Terapagos' sacrifice, when Terapagos blasted the 6 hero Pokemon all around the world and split his power between them, maybe it was a combination of Terapagos' power and Entei ending up in Area 0, maybe that combination was enough to turn Entei into a Gouging Fire. I'm just saying, surely it can't be a coincidence that Terapagos' power literally creates Paradox Pokemon, and Terapagos seemingly gave its power to Entei, and then the next time we saw Entei it was suddenly mysteriously a Paradox Entei. That's way too big to be a coincidence, surely. So yeah, there you have it, folks. That's my theory, a theory that I've surprisingly seen no one else really suggests so far. I actually came up with the theory back in November when we first saw the flashback to 100 years ago, and I kinda wish I made the video back then so I could really flex if it comes true. But at least I've made it now, right? Let me know your thoughts on this theory below. Do you like it? Do you agree or disagree? And as always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell too. 2025 is gonna be a really great year for my channel. I have a lot in store, dude. I want to do like a mixture of episode reviews and video essays and theory videos, and maybe even revisit some of the older stuff in the anime too, and hope you guys will join me for the ride. Finally, be sure to join our Discord server using the link in the description if you want to discuss the anime with like-minded fans. I'll be over there myself too, so come and join us. On that note, thank you all so much for watching, and best wishes until we meet again!